The Table 2 recommends a minimum antecedent dry period of 6 hours. So it's not a criteria, it's not a pass or fail, it's a recommendation. And this is a carryover from the Washington Department of Ecology protocol, where they set 6 hours because this was the time it took to achieve a 1 millimetre soil moisture deficit in their location. However, it's also a recognition that it might take some time for sample collection to take place. And the goal with all of this is not to mix nor miss subsequent storms. So we don't want to have the first storm event go through and another one an hour later that waters down the previous catchment. So we want to keep the storms distinct, but neither do we want to miss one if it comes through 7 hours later. Each site is different, and it should be part of the explanation in the detailed report how the program identified the end of one storm and the beginning of the next. It's also a bit of a recognition of reality that if it rains at 10 p.m. at night, it might be 8 hours before someone can safely retrieve the samples. So there needs to be a way for the site to recognise the end of the event, lock it out, and prevent the mixing and dilution by subsequent events. There's also a recognition that in itself may make it challenging to capture consecutive events. So yes, we'd like to do it, but the reality is how we do it is always a challenge. Full-scale devices have to be tested. Basically, whatever is being sold to the market has to be installed for testing. Now, there might be some minor modifications to facilitate flow measurement and sample collection, but it should not materially change the way the device operates. Also, for the testing to be applied for different models in the family, there has to be a scaling methodology or a relationship provided in the detailed performance report outlining how those results can be scaled. There's also a criteria that two of the qualifying events have to have peak flows greater than 75% of the design treatment flow rate. And at least one of those must be in bypass, so must be greater than 100%. Obviously, the more events closer to the treatable flow rate, the better for demonstrating performance. However, this criteria, again, was a recognition that you get what you get. When you're monitoring your system, you have no control over A, whether it rains, and B, if it does rain, at what intensity that you receive it. It doesn't mean, and it's not an approval to cherry pick the data, but it acknowledges that there has to be a minimum satisfied. Now, most proprietary filters, for example, should function at their treatable flow rate every event. But if you're monitoring a large constructed wetlands or a biofilter or a street tree pit, you might struggle to satisfy this requirement if there's a dry year during your monitoring. The more important thing is that the hydrographs have to be supplied in the detailed performance report so the reviewers can see when the samples were collected, whether the hydrograph was adequately sampled, and what the flow rates actually were.